Alright, so we are now halfway through 2024, and the year has flown by, and so far we got movies so far that were so good, even with the ones that were box office hits, and somehow which joined the $1 billion club, and also with other movies that we look forward to for the rest of the year. But in this video, we will be focusing on what was the best movie of 2024 so far, and this will be my full ranking here as well. And so, if you're new here, then be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you on any future vids. But now, let's hop into it. So starting with way below the list is Bad Boys Ride or Die, and even with the return of this franchise, and even that this was the first movie that won big at the box office, especially with the return of Will Smith and Martin Lawrence back in action on the big screen, being an iconic comedic cop duo that we all know and love, and especially as this is a beloved action franchise, and even people that were worried that this movie will be a box office flop, and it turns out I really enjoyed it. I liked all the action sequences, all of the car chases, and even with having Will Smith back in action, it was like really fun as well. But even with Reggie, that was the MVP, and even with the third act, with those camera angles and those cinematography, it was a top tier Bad Boys, and I really enjoyed this installment, and I hope we get another one of these. And now, coming up next on the list is If. Now, this is the new Ryan Reynolds movie that came out this year, and it stars along him and Keely Fleming as Bia, as she stumbles upon these imaginary friends that these people left behind growing up. But like now, it's up to her to save these imaginary friends, to reconnect with the children that they've abandoned, and even that it was directed by John Krasinski, and even with his vision of imaginary friends, it was brought to life in a very emotional way. I mean, bravo to him. I loved every single minute of it, and even towards the end, it got me so emotional, and it will also make you rethink life, and so much emotions. And I had a good time watching this movie, and it was full of fun, laughter, and plus I cried a little bit. But man, it was such a good movie, all about imaginary friends and what you had growing up and having your own imagination come to life. But it was just a dang good. It was a feel good story. And now the next one up is The Fall Guy. Now this is the movie that starred Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, and I'm sad that this movie was a box office flop, but it was still a good, fun movie. In fact, it was a love letter to all like a stuntman and all the things in the film and entertainment industry for what's like being on a film set with all these action sequences going on. Even with Ryan Gosling that played a stuntman and doing all these sweet action moments on screen. I mean, bravo to him because he was a fantastic stuntman, and even with his mission is to find the actor that has been missing. And even with Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt that work well on screen with their romantic chemistry and the romantic elements that are adapted into it. And even towards the end, it's where the big stuff goes down. And I enjoy this film, and even though I'm sad that this flopped at the box office, but it was still a good movie that came out this year that kicked off summer movie season. And now the next one up is Furiosa. Now this is the Mad Max prequel that starred Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth as even Anya Taylor-Joy that played a young Furiosa. It was like telling this origin story and how she was kidnapped from her family, from her home, and has to find a way to find her way home. And I enjoyed this movie, and I enjoyed all the action, all the Mad Max vibes I got from this movie, and even with Chris Hemsworth that played a great villain. And even though I enjoyed everyone's performances and being in the wasteland in an apocalyptic world, and I just loved it. And with this Mad Max franchise that everyone loves, and I just enjoyed the movie, even though it was a tad bit long. But even though I enjoyed what Anya Taylor-Joy brought to the character, and again, it was a fun, great action movie from the Mad Max franchise, and in fact, it was a great prequel. And now the next one up is Challengers, and now this is the Zendaya movie that came out, And honestly, I thought this was the best sports drama film I've ever seen on screen. It's because even with these two boys that were in a love triangle with Zendaya's character, and like even with the score, and it was based on tennis, and even with having shots back and forth, with having these like tense filled moments, and like even though. And like even with the drama that is filled between these two men, they were going after this girl. Even though trying to compete and play and make a tennis championship game, it was still a fun intense drama film movie to see on screen. And Zendaya basically crushed her role, and I hope she gets an award for this movie. And I just loved every single minute of it. It was like a sports movie, but filled with tense drama. And now the next up is Inside Out 2. Now this is the movie that recently joined the $1 billion club, so bravo to this movie, and it became the highest grossing movie of this year. And the reason why I love this movie is because it was like the perfect sequel to the first Inside Out, which I loved. But with this movie, it focuses on a different side of Riley that we never even seen before, because she's going through puberty and making changes and making new friends, while also having these decisions to make, and even with having these new emotions introduced, with embarrassment and anxiety, and that's a part that we all have inside of us. But even though that it's things that we can relate to it in life, and this movie proved just that. And even I got emotions towards the end. It's like the perfect Pixar sequel that Pixar has put out in a long time, and I'm happy for this movie and for its success. And I'm happy for Pixar, and this is a big win for it. And I enjoyed the sequel, and I liked what Riley did in this movie, and man, I just loved it. And now, coming up next on the list is Abigail, and now I think to me this is the best horror movie I've seen this year, and it was about these criminals that kidnap a ballerina, and which they don't know is that this is a ballerina vampire that is related to Dracula. Now, this movie is directed by Radio Silence. That gave us the last two Scream movies that starred Melissa Pereira, Catherine Newton, Giancarlo Esposito, and so much more. The list goes on and on. But even with the tense moments, the horror elements that are adapted into this movie is perfect. It is like a fresh take on the horror genre, and even with Abigail herself, the ballerina vampire, she was crazy in this movie. And I feel like I enjoyed every single bit of it, and it's like the best horror movie I've seen. And yeah, there's a bunch of kills that go down, some really good ones as well that I definitely enjoyed on the big screen. And now the next up on the list is Monkey Man. Now this was a movie that was starred and directed by Dev Patel, and even though that Jordan Peele had a producer role on this, but even with Dev Patel and what he can do with his directing style and his technique, it was totally amazing. It was incredible, and even with the action scenes and the fights that go down, especially as we have a John Wick style action movie with his character that was wearing a monkey mask and turning it into a vigilante, taking on these bad guys. And you Dev Patel that went through all these stunts and mainly injured himself basically all of his body stuff in order to do this movie. And I could tell this movie was intense. And it had amazing cinematography and amazing fight action sequences, and I just loved it. And the fact that I applaud to Dev Patel for pulling this movie off, and I definitely enjoyed it. But coming in at number one on the list, and I think the best movie of 2024 so far, was Dune Part 2. And even though I enjoyed everything what this movie brought, and even though I was a fan of the first Dune, but this sequel, for what I took from the first movie, it cranked it up a ton, because it is what the first movie should have been. But even being back in the world of Arrakis with Paul Atreides and Chani, and even with Paul leading all these men, and even with a war that's coming to them, and I like what Denis Villeneuve brought with his vision and they're doing this world building, and even with Austin Butler, who I thought was a great villain, and plus we're getting Dune Messiah in 2026, and even towards the end of the film, it set up everything probably for the last film in the trilogy. But again, I love the Dune Part 2. I thought it was the best movie of 2024, and even though with the marketing campaign, especially with the popcorn bucket that started it all and made this film a success, and I enjoyed every bit of it, and I thought it was the best film of this year. And so there you have it. These are the movies that I definitely enjoyed this year in 2024, which I thought was amazing, and that were big box office hits. And even as we look forward towards the rest of the years, especially with Deadpool and Wolverine and Alien and Romulus and all these other great movies that are coming out towards probably towards the end of this year, which I'm very excited for. But even that at the beginning of the year, that we got tons of great movies, and I can't wait for what's to come as well. But so that's gonna do it for this video. Just let me know in the comments below, what your thoughts on my ranking, and what did you think the best movie of 2024 so far in your ranking as well. Just let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe and turn on notifications bell for future videos. And also follow all my social medias, all which are linked down below, including my Patreon. And with that, I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.